Hi children, hope all are fine and safe at home. And nowadays, as you know, the number of corona patients are increasing day by day. So take care of yourself. Don't go anywhere from your home. Avoid unnecessary journeys during this time. Not only this, you wear mask whenever you talk to a person who is unknown to you, or whenever you talk to a person who is staying outside your home, and wash your hands when you before having your food. Okay, these are the things that you have to consider very seriously to save, to escape yourself from this most dreadful condition. Let's stand together to wipe out this corona from the world itself. So in the last class we have discussed about the steps of spermatogenesis and the structure of sperm. You might have forgot that, isn't it? Now here we have Advait and Anaka. They will help you to recollect what you have studied in the previous class. Okay.
Hi guys, we are going on to a process called gametogenesis. So before going on to the process, we can understand that there are mainly two types of primary sex organs, that is the testis in males and ovaries in females. The testis produces sperms and the ovaries produce ovum. So we are directly going on to the male reproductive tract where there is a process called spermatogenesis. So what is spermatogenesis? The production of sperm from the male germ cells is called as spermatogenesis. So this spermatogenesis has mainly two steps, where a spermatogonium, it is diploid and it has 46 chromosomes in it. The two steps include the formation of secondary spermatocyte from primary spermatocyte through meiotic division. This secondary spermatocyte formed is mainly haploid, 2 in number, and has 23 chromosomes in it. And the second step includes the formation of spermatids from this secondary spermatocyte through the second meiotic division. And this spermatids formed will be 4 in number, it is haploid and it too has 23 chromosomes in it. So the transformation of spermatids into the spermatozoa is called the process of spermiogenesis. So after spermiogenesis, the heads of the sperm are embedded into the Sertoli cells and then they are released from the seminiferous tubule through a process called spermiation. So this spermatogenesis mainly happens at the age of puberty due to the increased rise in the level of GnRS, that is the gonadotropin releasing hormone. So this is the hypothalamic hormone. So this gonadotropin releasing hormone acts at the anterior lobe of the pituitary gland and it results in producing two types of hormones called the LH and FSH. So the LH is the luteinizing hormone and the FSH is the follicle stimulating hormone. So this LH acts at the Leydig cells and it helps in the stimulation and secretion of androgens, and this androgen later helps on in the process of spermatogenesis, whereas the FSH acts on the Sertoli cells and it helps in the secretion of certain factors which helps in spermiogenesis.
Later we learned about the structure of the sperm. We know that sperm is the male gamete and it is a microscopic organism. The structure of a sperm consists of a head, a neck, a middle piece and a tail. The head of the sperm consists of an elongated haploid nucleus. At the anterior portion of the head, there is a cap-like structure known as acrosome. The acrosome consists of a number of enzymes which helps in the fertilization of the ovum. The middle piece of the sperm consists of a number of mitochondria which provide energy for the motion of the tail, which in turn facilitates the motility of the sperm, which is very important for fertilization. A human male ejaculates about 200 to 300 million sperms during insemination.
Now you might have understood the topic spermatogenesis and the structure of sperm, isn't it? Shall we move on to today's topic, oogenesis? Yes. What is oogenesis? As you know, oogenesis is the process of formation of female gamete inside the female reproductive system. Which is the female gamete? Yes, ova is the female gamete, or singular it is ovum. Ovum is the female gamete, isn't it? So in short, we can define oogenesis as the process of formation of ovum inside the ovary of the female reproductive system. Both oogenesis and spermatogenesis have certain similarities, especially in the case of the multiplication phase and the maturation phase of both oogenesis and spermatogenesis. Oogenesis and spermatogenesis will show certain similarities in its multiplication as well as maturation phase, although there are certain differences between the spermatogenesis and oogenesis. Now I'll tell you about the major differences that can be seen between the oogenesis and the spermatogenesis. In the case of male, the spermatogenesis will start immediately after. In the case of male, spermatogenesis will start when the male attained the puberty. That means after the birth of the male child only it will happen. But in the case of female, their oogenesis will start prior to the birth of the female child. That means when the child is inside the mother's womb, the oogenesis will start. And all the oogonia which is necessary for the formation of ova will form inside the fetal embryo before the birth of the child itself. That means no more oogonia will add after the birth of the child. In case of male, the male germ cells necessary for the production of spermatozoa are formed after attaining the puberty. And the spermatogenesis may extend throughout the lifespan of the male individual. When we will consider a male individual, even if he is in the age of 90, he is able to produce, he can produce the spermatozoa. But it is not possible in the case of females. In the case of female, they can produce functional ovaries only up to a certain limit. That means only up to the age of 45 to 50 years. Beyond that, females are not capable of producing. But there are certain differences. Genetical variation will be there, and the physical condition of the individual. Many other things will influence the process of production of ova. And the other difference is, in the case of male, 4 sperms can be produced from a single spermatocyte. But here in the case of female, only 1 ova can be produced from a single oocyte. So these are the major differences between the oogenesis and the spermatogenesis. The process of oogenesis involves 3 main steps. They are multiplication phase, growth phase and a maturation phase. Now you are watching the figure of oogenesis, and here oogenesis involves 3 main phases. They are multiplication phase, growth phase and a maturation phase. Now during the multiplication phase, a large number of primordial germ cells or oogonia which is there inside the fetal ovary will undergo a number of mitotic division. As a result of this division, a large number of oogonia cells will form. When the embryo is 5 months old, around 7 million oogonia will be there inside the fetal ovary. And this oogonia will gradually disintegrate and reaches to 2 million at the time of birth. That means the 7 million oogonia which was there during the initial days of development will reduce to 2 million due to the degeneration which happen in between the 5th and 9th month. So multiplication phase, what will happen? During the multiplication phase, the primary germ cells which is there inside the fetal ovary will undergo a number of division. As a result of this number of division, a large number of oogonia cells will form inside the fetal ovary. Isn't it? During the second time, that is during the time of growth, the oogonia cells which is formed through mitotic division will enter the prophase of meiosis and it get arrested in that stage itself. Now we can call oogonia as primary oocyte in this stage. Okay. And immediately after the formation of primary oocyte, the follicular cells which can be seen inside the fetal ovary will grow and proliferate to form a single layer of cuboidal epithelium. As you see in the figure, the single layer of epithelium is known as granulosa cells. Okay, granulosa cells. And these granulosa cells will arrange itself around the primary oocyte. Now we can call this stage as primary follicular stage. Okay, primary follicular stage. So during the time of growth phase, what will happen? The oogonia, which is formed through mitotic division, will enter the prophase first of meiosis and get temporarily arrested in that stage. And we can call this stage as primary oocyte stage. The primary oocyte will develop a layer of granulosa cells around it. When it develops a layer of granulosa cells around it, we can call this stage as primary follicle stage. During the primary follicle stage, a large number of these primary follicle will undergo degeneration process. As a result of this, when the child attains puberty, at that time only 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicle will remain in each ovary. Gradually, the primary follicle will change into the form of secondary follicle by the addition of more granulosa layers around the primary oocyte. And in addition to this, a theca layer will also form around the granulosa layer. So what is the feature of secondary follicle? Secondary follicle may contain more layers of granulosa cells around the primary oocyte. In addition to that, a theca layer can also be found outside the granulosa layers. Actually, this theca layer is formed from the connective tissue layer of the ovary. And then the secondary follicle will change into the form of a tertiary follicle. And this tertiary follicle is characterized by the presence of a fluid-filled cavity inside it. And this fluid-filled cavity is known as antrum. And in addition to this, tertiary follicle is characterized by a specialized theca layer. That means we can see more specialized theca layer. The theca layer this theca layer may have two layers, outer theca externa and an inner theca interna. So such a highly specified theca layer can be seen in the tertiary follicle stage. I'll tell you once more. Gradually, the secondary follicle will change into the form of tertiary follicle, and the tertiary follicle is characterized by the presence of a fluid-filled cavity inside it. In addition to the presence of this cavity, it may contain a theca layer also. Now, the primary oocyte inside the tertiary follicle become mature and it will be ready for meiotic division. Now, the primary oocyte will undergo the first meiotic division, and as a result of the first meiotic division, a secondary oocyte and a first polar body will form. What is the feature of the secondary oocyte? It may have only n number of chromosomes in it. That is, only 23 chromosomes will be there in the case of secondary oocyte. Gradually, the granulosa cells which can be seen around the secondary oocyte will change into the form of mature Graafian follicle. Immediately after the conversion of these granulosa cells into the form of mature Graafian follicle, the Graafian follicle will rupture and it will release its content to outside. What is the content of this mature Graafian follicle? It may contain ova minute, isn't it? And as the rupturing of the Graafian follicle, the ova may release the outside. This ova will enter inside the fallopian tube of the female. And as it moves along the fallopian tube, if it meets sperm, what will happen? The sperm, it may fuse with the sperm. So immediately after the fusion, the ova or the secondary oocyte will undergo the second meiotic division. As a result of the second meiotic division, a second polar body will form inside that. Along with the formation of the second polar body, a female pronucleus will also form inside it. The second polar body will be eliminated from there that moment itself, and the female pronucleus may combine with the male pronucleus, which result in the formation of a diploid zygote, as you see in the figure. And again here, after the rupturing of the Graafian follicle, the remaining Graafian follicle will be there in that area, isn't it? This remaining Graafian follicle will change into the form of corpus luteum, another structure. This corpus luteum have a major role in the production of progesterone hormone, and thereby it helps to maintain the endometrium for implantation process.
Now we are moving to another topic, menstrual cycle. As you know, menstrual cycle is a series of cyclical changes that may happen inside the ovary and uterus of the female reproductive system.
to support pregnancy and childbirth. One of the major important events that may happen during the time of menstrual cycle is menstruation process. As you know, menstruation is the process of a release of unfertilized egg and a ruptured endometrium from the body of the female. So, menstruation is characterized by the presence of blood. That means during the time of menstruation, bleeding will be there. So, this phase can be considered as a bleeding phase. Actually, this blood is coming from the uterus due to the rupturing of the innermost layer of the uterus. That is due to the rupturing of the blood vessel, which can be seen in the endometrial layer of the uterus. In the case of females, the cycle may start when they attain puberty and may extend up to the age of 45 to 50 years. Each menstrual cycle will repeat at an interval of 28 to 29 days. This length of the cycle may vary in each individual. That means the length of the cycle may vary according to the age and physical condition of the individual and the health of the individual and the mental condition of the individual. All these things can influence, all these factors can influence the length or duration of the menstrual cycle in the case of females. So as I told you, this kind of cycle can be seen in the case of all primates, especially monkey, apes, human beings, isn't it? And as I told you earlier, it involves 4 main phases. They are menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase and luteal phase. I will tell you once more. The process of menstrual cycle involves 4 main phases. They are menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulatory phase and luteal phase. Now let's discuss about each phase in detail.
Now you are watching the figure of series of cyclical changes that may happen inside a female's body to prepare it for fertilization and pregnancy. We can call this series of cyclical changes as menstrual cycle, and this menstrual cycle will start when she attains puberty. That means when the female attains puberty, at that time itself the menstrual cycle will start. Actually, the first menstrual cycle of the females are known as menarche. After the menarche, the cycle will repeat at an interval of 28 to 29 days. The length of the cycle may vary in according to the age and certain other factors that I have mentioned earlier. Menstrual cycle involves 4 main phases. First phase is menstrual phase, and the second phase is follicular phase or proliferative phase. Third phase is ovulatory phase and fourth phase is secretory phase. Now let's study the changes that may happen in each phase of menstrual cycle. Okay, menstrual phase is the first phase. As you see in the figure, the menstrual phase are the initial days of menstrual cycle. It may last up to first 5 days. These days are characterized by the presence of blood. These days are characterized by the excess vaginal bleeding. During menstrual phase, the unfertilized egg of the previous cycle will expel from the body along with the ruptured blood vessels of endometrium. So as I told you earlier, this menstrual phase will happen in the absence of fertilization. If fertilization doesn't occur, the corpus luteum, which is there inside the ovary, get degenerated. As a result of the degeneration of the corpus luteum, the hormone produced by the corpus luteum, that is progesterone, will be less in the blood. I'll tell you once more. Due to the degeneration of the corpus luteum, the progesterone level in the blood decreases. Progesterone is a hormone which is necessary for maintaining the endometrium for implantation. If progesterone is not there in the blood, or if its production is decreased due to any reason, it may result in the rupturing of the endometrial layer of the uterus. So as I told you earlier, here due to the degradation of corpus luteum, the progesterone level is decreased. As a result of the decrease in the progesterone level, the endometrium will rupture. Along with the rupturing of the endometrium, the unfertilized egg can also come out. That is, the ruptured endometrium will expel from the body along with the unfertilized egg. Since the endometrium contains large number of blood vessels in it, rupturing of the endometrium since the endometrium contains large number of blood vessels in it, due to the rupturing of endometrium, the blood can also be expelled. So, menstruation is the process of release of this unfertilized egg and the ruptured endometrium through the vagina of the female. That is, along with this release, some amount of blood can also be expelled from the body. So this phase is considered as the menstrual phase of menstrual cycle. Now let's move on to the next phase, that is proliferative phase of the menstrual cycle. During the proliferative phase or during the follicular phase, the hypothalamus will secrete a hormone known as GnRH, that is gonadotropin releasing hormone. This gonadotropin releasing hormone will act on anterior pituitary and thereby which facilitate the release of GnRH, which will facilitate the release of two other hormones from anterior pituitary. In short, due to the action of GnRH from the hypothalamus, two hormones FSH and LH can be released from the anterior pituitary. FSH hormone will stimulate the ovarian follicle and promote the growth of ovarian follicle. As you see in the figure, these are the primary follicle. This primary follicle will gradually grow and increases its size due to the action of the FSH hormone from anterior pituitary. As the follicles grow, it secretes a hormone estrogen. The estrogen which is produced from the growing follicle will act on the uterine lining and it stimulates the growth of new endometrial layer in the uterus. At the same time, the same estrogen can act on the anterior pituitary also. As a result of the action of this estrogen hormone on anterior pituitary, the anterior pituitary will reduce the secretion of FSH from it. So, due to the sudden decrease in the FSH hormone, the other follicle which is designed to become ova will degenerate will stop growth and degenerate itself. And only one ovum that has more FSH receptors on its surface will become mature. And this mature ovarian follicle and a follicle with a more number of FSH receptors in its surface will mature at this stage. And this dominant mature follicle will produce more estrogen from it. This estrogen will again act on anterior pituitary and stimulate the production of FSH and LH. As the amount of estrogen increases, along with the increase in the amount of estrogen, the production of FSH and LH will increase. This is the 14th or 13th day of menstrual cycle, and this time the follicle will become mature and will produce maximum estrogen, and this estrogen will stimulate the anterior pituitary to release more FSH and LH from it. Due to the release of more LH and FSH, especially the amount of LH will be maximum. So due to the sudden increase in the LH hormone, the collagenous activity inside the ovary will increase. Along with that, the muscular contraction of the ovarian wall and this collagenous activity can cause the rupturing of the mature Graafian follicle. The release of ova from the Graafian follicle is known as the ovulatory period or ovulatory phase of the menstrual cycle. This may happen during the 14th day of the menstrual cycle, as you see here. So, what is the feature of ovulatory phase? During ovulatory phase, the mature Graafian follicle will rupture and it causes the release of oocyte from it. This oocyte will enter inside a fallopian tube. This ovum will enter the fallopian tube. And the remaining part of this Graafian follicle will change into the form of corpus luteum due to the action of LH hormone. So this corpus luteum, what is the role of this corpus luteum? It have a major role in the production of progesterone hormone. And due to the production of corpus luteum or due to the conversion of Graafian follicle into the corpus luteum, the amount of progesterone level in the blood increases. Due to the sudden increase in the progesterone level, the endometrial layer become more thicker and more vascular, and this is a adaptation for accepting the fertilized egg in the uterine layer. This progesterone level will make the endometrium more suitable for implantation. This condition can be seen immediately after the release of ova from ovary. So as the ova moves along through the oviduct, if the fertilization doesn't occur, what will happen? The corpus luteum will start to degenerate. As you see here, the corpus luteum will degenerate. As a result of the degeneration of the corpus luteum, the progesterone level or the amount of progesterone so decrease. That is, if the progesterone level is decreasing in the blood, the endometrium layer cannot be maintained in a highly vascular condition. Instead of that, it may rupture fastly due to the sudden decrease of progesterone. Actually, the decreasing level of the progesterone, the degraded endometrium and the decreasing level of progesterone will fail to maintain the endometrium layer. Here, the next cycle will begin. That is, the next cycle of menstruation will begin. ഇവിടെ corpus luteum degenerate ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ പ്രൊജസ്ട്രോണിൻ്റെ ലെവൽ കുറയുന്നു. പ്രൊജസ്ട്രോണിൻ്റെ ലെവൽ കുറയുന്നതോടുകൂടി എൻഡോമെട്രിയം മെയിൻറ്റെയിൻ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റാതെയാവുന്നു. എൻഡോമെട്രിയം മെയിൻറ്റെയിൻ ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റാതെയായ എന്ത് പറ്റും? ഇത് ഡീജനറേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് പോകും അല്ലേ? അപ്പോൾ ഡീജനറേറ്റ് ചെയ്ത് പോകുന്നതിനോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ നേരത്തെ റിലീസ് ചെയ്ത ഓവ അൺഫെർട്ടിലൈസ്ഡ് കണ്ടീഷനിലാണെങ്കിൽ അത് റപ്ചർ ചെയ്ത എൻഡോമെട്രിയം ലെയറിനോടൊപ്പം വജൈനൽ ഓപ്പണിംഗ് വഴി പുറത്തേക്ക് പോകും. അതായത് അടുത്ത സൈക്കിൾ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യാണ്.
അമ്മയാവാനായിട്ട് സ്ത്രീ ശരീരം നടത്തുന്ന തയ്യാറെടുപ്പുകൾ എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് നിങ്ങൾ മെൻസ്ട്രൽ സൈക്കിളിൽ പഠിച്ചു. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ഫെർട്ടിലൈസേഷൻ നടക്കാതിരുന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞ് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ ഓവം ഗർഭാശയ ഭിത്തിയോടുകൂടി പുറന്തള്ളപ്പെടും. അതാണ് മെൻസ്ട്രൽ ഫേസ്. അതാണ് മെൻസ്ട്രൽ സൈക്കിളിലെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട ഇവൻ്റ് ഒന്ന് നിങ്ങൾ പഠിച്ചു അല്ലേ? അതായത് ഇനി നമ്മൾ പഠിക്കാൻ പോകുന്നത് ഫെർട്ടിലൈസേഷൻ നടന്നു കഴിഞ്ഞ് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ സ്ത്രീ ശരീരത്തിനുള്ളിൽ ഉണ്ടാകുന്ന മാറ്റം. സ്ത്രീ ശരീരത്തിനുള്ളിലുണ്ടാകുന്ന മാറ്റങ്ങളോടൊപ്പം തന്നെ ഫെർട്ടിലൈസ്ഡ് എഗ്ഗിനുണ്ടാകുന്ന മാറ്റങ്ങൾ എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് എന്നുള്ള കാര്യമാണ്. So let's study the changes that may happen from the period of ovulation to the period of implantation.
Now you are watching the figure of female reproductive system, and in this image you can see the sequence of events that may happen inside the female reproductive system from the day of ovulation to the day of implantation. Now let's study the changes that may happen inside the female reproductive system immediately after the insemination process. During the time of sexual intercourse, millions of sperms are deposited into the vagina of the female reproductive tract, and these sperms will try to move towards a fallopian tube through the cervix and uterus. As it moves along the fallopian tube of the female, it may come in contact, that is, sperm may come in contact with the ova which is released from the ovary. When the sperms come in contact with the ova, it induces some changes in the membrane of the ovum. As a result of these changes, ovum prevent the entry of multiple sperms into it. Not only this, some enzyme which can be seen on the sperm head will help to dissolve the membrane, outer membranes of the ova. Especially hyaluronidase is an enzyme which help to break the corona radiata layer of the ova. This corona radiata is the outermost layer of the ova. It can be broken by, or it can be broken by the hyaluronidase enzyme, which can be seen in the sperm head. Okay, in addition to this, certain other enzymes which can be seen on the sperm head will also help to dissolve the plasma membrane and zona pellucida layer of the ova also, and thereby the enzyme will facilitate the embryo sperm into the secondary oocyte. Immediately after the sperm entry into the secondary oocyte completes its second meiotic division. As a result of the second meiotic division, a second polar body and a female pronucleus will form inside it. The second polar body will eliminate itself from there. Female pronucleus may combine with the sperm male pronucleus, and the fusion of the male and female pronucleus will result in the formation of a zygote, and this zygote will try to move towards uterus for implantation. As it moves along the oviduct, it undergoes some changes. That means it may undergo some mitotic division. We can call this mitotic division as cleavage. Okay, and the cells formed through cleavage is known as blastomeres. As a result of the fusion of the male and female pronucleus, a diploid zygote will form inside the oviduct of the female. This diploid zygote will move immediately after its formation. That is, it will try to move towards uterus after its formation. During this journey, it will undergo certain mitotic division. We can call this division as cleavage. That is, during its journey from fallopian tube towards the uterus, it will undergo so many cleavages. And as a result of the cleavages, the cells will form, isn't it? We can call these cells as blastomeres. That is, blastomeres are the cells formed after the cleavage. Okay, you can see in the figure, the zygote is formed in this region, and the zygote is trying to move towards the uterus, isn't it? On the way to uterus, it will undergo cleavage. That means it will undergo its mitotic division. As a result of the mitotic division, first mitotic division, the zygote will change into a two-celled form. This is the two-celled form. Again, it will move towards uterus. Along with the movement, it will undergo further divisions. That is, during the second cleavage, the two-celled stage will change into a four-celled stage. Here you can see four-celled stage. The four-celled stage will again undergo one more mitotic division. Morula will form. Here you can see, actually this is a group of cell. This group of cell may contain 8 to 16 blastomeres in it, and the embryo with 8 to 16 blastomeres are known as morula, or we can call this stage as morula stage of the embryo. This stage ne vilikkunna perana morula stage. Okay, so I will tell you once more. Here the zygote will form in the ampullary isthmus region, from where as it moves towards the uterus, it will undergo further division. Due to the first division, a two-celled stage will form. Again, the two cells which is formed after the cleavage will undergo further division, which result in the formation of a four-celled stage. Again, this four-celled stage will undergo some more divisions, and which will result in the formation of a cluster of cells, a mass of cells. These mass of cells may contain 8 to 16 blastomeres in it. We can call this stage as morula stage. That means morula stage is a specific stage of the embryo in which we can see 8 to 16 blastomeres in it. Okay. Gradually, the morula will change into another form. We can call this form as early blastocyst stage. This is the early blastocyst stage, and during this stage,
the mass of cells which can be seen in the morula will arrange itself as an outer layer. In the early blastocyst stage, the cells of the morula will arrange itself as an outer layer. We can see this outer layer, and the remaining cells can be seen as an inner cell mass also. Here you can see an inner cell mass. So the outer layer of cells formed from morula is known as trophoblast. Inner cell mass will gradually change into the form of embryo. And this stage is known as what? Blastocyst stage. As you see here, this is the late blastocyst stage. Now it is ready for implantation. That is, it is ready for attaching towards the innermost layer of the uterus. This is the blastocyst stage. As I told you earlier, a blastocyst stage may contain an outer layer of cell and an inner cell mass. The outer layer of cells are known as trophoblast, and the inner cell mass will change into the form of embryo. That is, this cell mass will gradually change into the form of the fetus. This will change into the form of fetus. During the 7th day, the blastocyst try to embed it in the innermost layer of the uterus. And when it penetrates into the innermost layer of the uterus, the uterine cells will cover the blastocyst by its division. Now we can call this stage as implantation stage. This is the implantation stage, and the embryo will try to take the nutrients and the necessary things from the maternal body. After implantation, the embryo will make certain finger-like projections on its surface. We can call these finger-like projections as chorionic villi. This chorionic villi will make an intimate connection with the uterine tissue and form a structural and functional unit between the developing embryo and the maternal body. We can call this structural and functional unit of tissue as placenta. Okay, this placenta may have two parts, that is a fetal placenta and a maternal placenta. Actually, fetal placenta is formed from the fetal tissue and the maternal placenta is formed from the maternal tissue. And what is the function of this placenta? This placenta will act as a nutritive, respiratory and excretory organ of the fetus. This placenta will help to exchange the nutrients between the maternal body and a growing embryo, and it helps to transport the respiratory gases from fetal body to the maternal body, and it also helps to eliminate the unwanted waste material which is formed in the body of the fetus to the body of mother. In addition to the function which I mentioned earlier, the placenta has certain other functions also. That is, it acts as an endocrine tissue by secreting certain hormones like human chorionic gonadotropin or HCG, human placental lactogen or HPL, estrogen, progesterone, etc. These hormones have major role in maintaining the pregnancy without any problem. Fetus is connected to the placenta through a vascular connection called the umbilical cord. That is, the fetus exchanges the nutrients and waste material with the placenta through the vascular connection umbilical cord.
Hope you might have understood the topic well. Now I am going to wind up the session. If you have any doubt, please contact me. I'll be there. Stay safe. Bye.